Hey everybody, we are officially live. I'm so excited to start our third workshop of the spring semester. I'm so excited to kick this off. My colleague Jeline will send you an email with the link on how to watch this. If you're watching the recording of this, please feel free to fast forward by around 7 minutes. Excuse me. We will get started in around 7 minutes at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific. If you are joining now, I'm excited to have you here and excited to kick this off. So my colleague Jolene, I'm just sending her the link. See if she's got it all here. But anyways, yeah, I'm glad to have y'all here, and I'm excited for our third mentor workshop. Um, T. Okay. Right. Um, cool. She should have this up. Great. Cool. Send it out. All right. I believe Jolene has just sent out the email for the third workshop. We will get started in 5 minutes. Um, um, but yeah, if you are tuning in, glad to have you here. Introduce yourself in the chat. Where are you tuning in from? Please share your name and where you're tuning in from in the chat. So yeah, I remember our last workshop, I had a audio issue where my microphone was on mute and not playing, which was hilarious. But I'm glad that we have live chat because people in the live chat can tell me, Garrett, your audio's on mute and we can't hear you. Has anybody had any fun things happen to them since last time we spoke? I can give you all an update on my side. I'm officially a father. I have a very cute baby, and yeah, he's the cutest thing in the world. And my wife and I are getting on a schedule, and we're doing our best with our sleep, and we're trying to make it work. Now, granted, it's going to be his 3-week birthday tomorrow, so early days, let's put it like that. But yeah, we are, we're making it work as the new parents. We've got a lot of support from family and stuff like that. But anyways, for those of you tuning in, post in the chat where you tuning in from and where you're tuning in from and your name. Thanks, David. I appreciate it. Um, I guess, yeah, any parental advice that you like to share in the 3 minutes before we get started? Any new parent advice for me before we get started on our workshop this evening? Melrose, Massachusetts. David, this is an uninformed perspective or question, but thank you, Lloydeth. I appreciate it. But David, question is there any town in Massachusetts that's not close to Boston? I know that sounds like a silly question, but I feel like anytime I hear anybody's from Massachusetts, I mean, every town in Massachusetts is a suburb of Boston, from my understanding, but I'm also not from the Northeast and I haven't spent too much time in Massachusetts. I've been to Boston, but I've not been to the surrounding suburbs and stuff like that. Hey, Brenda, you're in Houston. Very cool. I'll be in Houston next week. There is Western Massachusetts, LOL. What is like, is there a lot, David, just out of curiosity, because I'm not from the western part of Massachusetts or just the Northeast in general, are there a lot of people that live in Western Massachusetts? Um, Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Lloyd, I'd be curious to know, is Phillipsburg on the northern part of New Jersey or the southern part of New Jersey? I mean, I guess, are you closer to Philadelphia or are you closer to New York City? I'd be curious to know. All right, we're gonna get started in 1 minute. Um, all right, well, hopefully everyone's got the email with this link. Rami from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Very nice. It's more rural out there generally, but it's populated. The state is pretty wide, not so tall. Makes sense. Yeah, western part of New Jersey next to Easton, Pennsylvania. Very cool. Very nice. All right, it is officially 6 o'clock here, 6 o'clock here in Austin, Texas, 7 o'clock on the East Coast, 5 o'clock in the Mountain Time, and 4 o'clock on the West Coast. Excuse me. Let's get started. So, oh, 1.5 hours from Philly. Very interesting. So let's get started. So today, in today's workshop, what we're going to cover is a few different things. One, we're going to cover suggested questions you can ask your mentee to build a deeper bond and relationship with them. Really, how do I get them to open up more to you? How to help your mentee with accountability, and then suggested questions that get them thinking not only about accountability, but to help them broaden their perspective. This workshop today will be around 15 minutes long, depending on Q&A and how much time we spend in Q&A and all that sort of fun stuff. But what we're going to first cover are the three keys to being a successful mentor. That is honing your strategy, that is honing your story, and that is honing your state. I said them in reverse order of importance. Your state, that is physically how are you doing? I know I harp on this every single mentor workshop, but it is really so powerful because ultimately, if you're coming in to a mentor meeting or really any conversation, this could be with your boss, this could be in an interview, this could be on a sales conversation, this could be in anything. If you're coming into a conversation not on your peak physical state where you're just coming in energetic, you got blood flowing, you're going to give off from a body language perspective those vibes, those impressions. And so if you come in energetic, enthused, excited to be there, and people can tell from your body language, they are much more likely to resonate and connect with you because your body language is open. It's saying, hey, I'm ready to be received and I'm ready to connect with somebody else. Story. What makes that so powerful as a mentor is the story you tell yourself. These are the internal thoughts we have in our head. These are the internal things we think about when it comes to our abilities. And don't get me wrong, I get it. Sometimes weird things happen. We get our confidence shaken. I mean, shoot, I get that too. But ultimately, if we can reinforce a story for why we can be a great mentor, or great for that matter at anything, we are much more likely to be successful at that thing because that story is the thing that reinforces ourselves. It's kind of like when a professional basketball player envisions the clock going down 3, 2, 1, and they hit the game-winning shot. Um, they're thinking to themselves, okay, I'm going to make this shot. You know, even if they recently missed a few shots or had a bad couple of games, like if you can still visualize the story of what success looks like, you can make that happen. You're much more likely to make it happen than if you harp on the bad things that recently happened. So I really want to focus on what is the story that we tell ourselves. And then strategy, those are the things that we do to be better mentors. This could be resume reviews. This could be mock interviews. This could be introductions to people you know that you think could be beneficial to your mentee. By the way, at this point juncture in the relationship, one, you should hopefully you've already met with your mentee by now and have scheduled those meetings. If not, please email Jolene at support@ambition-in-motion.com. She can help get in touch with your mentee to make sure that those meetings are happening. But then second, by this juncture, perhaps you're starting to think, okay, what are the next steps for after the semester? And that's where I love to talk about resumes or cover letters or mock interviews or preparing for that first job or internship or setting a game plan for making that first job or internship a success or introductions to people that you may know that might be able to help your mentee. This is the time that we should start to think about these sorts of things because that can be incredibly helpful to a mentee as they work and traverse through their career and just their path. So before we dive into building a deeper relationship with your mentee, I'm going to look at the Q&A, see what we got going on over here. Hey, Danny from Kansas City. Hey, Gordon from Salt Lake City. And hey, Glenn from McHenry, Illinois. Very cool. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Um, so let's talk about building a deeper relationship with your mentee. One thing I love to ask is, tell me your story starting with kindergarten. I think I covered this in our last workshop, but it really is a powerful question. It may seem like a lot of detail, but gives you a lens into their personal goals and drivers. I then love to ask, what is your dream career and how do you plan on getting there? And then I love to ask, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What this does, it really helps for a mentee break up their career into stages and steps so then more or less they can make progress towards their career outcomes and the things that they're trying to achieve. One other thing I love to do to get to know a mentee better or just any person better is tell me a story of a time when you really wanted something and then ended up determining that you really didn't want it after working towards achieving that thing. This could mean, like I've heard stories like, for example, one person once shared with me that all they wanted growing up was a dirt bike. All they wanted growing up was a dirt bike. This dirt bike was the number one thing on their mind. They wanted it for Christmas. They wanted it for Hanukkah. They wanted it for their birthday. Wanted for like every scenario they could possibly get a gift. All they wanted was a dirt bike. And their parents kept saying no, kept saying no, kept saying no. And then finally they said, you know what, Doug, if you work yourself a job enough to save up for a dirt bike, you can go out and buy yourself a dirt bike. So Doug went out, got himself a job, saved up around $3,000 to pay for a dirt bike. And by the time it came to the time that he could actually purchase a dirt bike, he decided he didn't want a dirt bike anymore. Um, and so I love asking that question of, tell me a story about a time when you really wanted something, you worked hard to actually getting that thing, and then you ended up changing your mind. And the reason why I love asking that story, especially for college students, is because oftentimes college students are working towards this degree path, which they think is a very linear path into a career path, which sometimes it is, but more often than not, career paths zig and they zag. And when we put so much of our identity into what we say our freshman year of college for what we're going to do after college, and then it doesn't go that way, it can be really a big hit to our ego when it doesn't need to be a big hit to our ego. So I love asking the story about a time that you really wanted something, you worked really hard towards achieving it, and then by the time you got to a point where you could get that thing, you ended up determining this is what you wanted anymore. And that, by the way, is okay. It's a good story to reinforce because it shows students that they can make changes in their life and that their identity is not tied up in what they thought they wanted to begin with. Maybe you pursued a career or a degree in marketing and then you got into marketing and you're like, you know what? I don't know if I want to do marketing. Maybe I want to change careers to accounting or to finance or to social media or to public relations or to something different. It doesn't matter. It's all right. And I like asking that question because it gets people thinking and realizing that they can make a change. One of the best things that you can impart in terms of wisdom on a mentee is that it's okay to make changes. It's okay to make a switch up. Your identity isn't who you said you thought you wanted to be when you first came to college, or even this past year for that matter. You can make changes. I'm a big fan of strong opinions loosely held, meaning that we can be regularly educated on new things that come along in our sphere of influence and knowledge base, and we can make adjustments to that. Because if we feel so rigid, so tightly boxed into whatever career path we think we have to be, more often than not, it leads to some form of misery because we are not living our life, we're living somebody else's life that we think that they have some expectation of us. And if as a mentor, we can help release the shackles of the social capital a student thinks that they need to be living up to, that can be one of the most rewarding things you can give to somebody else. I know certainly was for me. I shared my story in the first workshop about being a drug dealer. And I guess I don't know if I really touched on this, but like I had all this perception of what I felt like I needed to be for my family or for my parents or for my friends or for, my parents' friends and all that sort of stuff. And it was like almost by getting caught and getting in trouble, it released the shackles of expectation. When I started Ambition in Motion, so many people came to me and said, "Oh, isn't starting a business risky? Or, isn't this really, really hard? Or, don't you worry about being a failure as a business owner or a business leader?" And I said, "You know what? I'm playing with house cards right now. I'm already a failure. There's no further down I can go. But if I can positively impact one person's life, you want to know what? It's all been worth it." And so this is my own diatribe as to say, if you can help a mentee release or at least relieve the shackles of their perceived expectations and be able to make adjustments in their life so that they can live a happy life, that's one of the most powerful things you can do for a mentee. And I highly, highly, I love asking the question, tell me about a story about a time when you really wanted something, you ended up working towards achieving it, and then determined you didn't want that thing anymore. It's a great way to help alleviate the perceived social capital shackles that sometimes we, as any, by the way, not only young people, but all people, put on ourselves. And ideally, when you ask that story, maybe you share a story with them about something that you've done similarly as well. But ultimately, the point is that this can get your mentee to open up to you and for you to build a deeper bond and relationship with your mentee. So, next step, we're going to talk about how to help your mentee with accountability. Then we're going to talk about how to help broaden their perspective. But before we go into that, I just want to see if there are any questions in the Q&A. Looks like we don't have any. V, thanks for tuning in from Columbia, South Carolina. That's awesome. All right, cool. So there are 5 questions that I like to ask a mentee when it comes to helping them with accountability. And I'll go over those 5 questions right now. I'm going to take a sip of water. I'm a little thirsty. Okay. So the 5 questions that I like to ask to help a mentee with accountability. 1, when have you persisted and had it pay off for you? I like asking this question because what it does is it helps your mentee really think about, okay, when have I persisted and when did it pay off for me? It helps build resilience. Ultimately, achieving difficult things and being accountable for things is hard. And so when you help remind a mentee of when they've persisted and it paid off for them, you're reinforcing that hard work can win for you at the long run and therefore is worth the time, energy, and effort to make the the commitment to doing the things that you want to do. It's just a lot of discipline, but it's worth it. It helps them reinforce that. Second question I like to ask is, what specific actions do you need to take to meet your goal? This puts the accountability in their court, as opposed to you as the mentor telling them this is what I think you should do. Instead, asking the questions, what specific actions do you need to take to meet your goal? You are now putting the ball in their court to come up with their own action plan. So then if you hold them accountable, it's like, hey, this wasn't your plan for them. This was their own plan for themselves. You're just following up with them on the things that they said they wanted to achieve. Third question I like to ask, who can help you be accountable? I mean, obviously you as their mentor can help them be accountable, but are there other people in their life that can help them be accountable? Nothing helps people achieve their goal more than when they vocalize it to more people and those people help them be accountable to the thing that they want to do, because now it becomes part of their identity. 4, what systems can you put in place to help you follow through? I love asking this question because systems are huge. They're habits. They're things that you can do to make a positive change in your life. And so I love to ask the question, what systems can you put in place to help you follow through? Because what that does is it helps you move forward and really have some additional accountability besides just friends and people that are in your community and network. And then the 5th question I like to ask is, what are the costs/rewards of and of not following through on your commitments? This allows us to give us a vision for, what we're trying to achieve and what are the potential ramifications for not achieving it if we don't follow through and we don't practice accountability. By asking these questions, as opposed to telling them, oh, well, you're going to fail, or this is going to suck, or you're going to do this or that, or whatever, instead, by asking them the questions and letting them verbalize it back to you, you're much more likely to get not only accountability, but them to actually do the things that they said that they were going to do, because it was not your action plan for them, it was their own action plan for themselves. I'm going to check the chat, see if we have any questions. Looks like we don't. Okay, cool. Well, let's go into the 6 questions that I like to ask a mentee to help them broaden their perspective. So there are 6 questions I like to ask a mentee to help them broaden their perspective. First question is, what will this situation look like to you in 10 years? I like to ask that question because what that question does is it helps them think beyond their immediate, like what's going on right now, like tunnel vision. It gets them into, okay, 10 years from now, for a 22-year-old, that's almost a third of their life. So a lot of times they haven't even thought about 10 years from now. That seems like so far in the future. But by getting them to think about it, because by the way, as mentors and as professionals, 10 years is not that long of a time period. 10 years can go by real quick. But by getting your mentee to think about it, you're now getting them to think, okay, wow, this isn't some insurmountable time in the future. This is something that could be right around the corner, and I should be intentional about what the next steps are. 2, what are you willing to try that is different? I like to think of this question as almost like the airplane question. So it's like when you're on an airplane and you are en route to whatever outcome you're going towards, if you're in the early part of your flight, even a small change in your flight trajectory from where you took off from can have a major impact as to where you end up. So if you're starting here and you're going to here, and then all of a sudden you make a little switch to go, like if you make just a subtle switch at the beginning of the flight, you may end up in a totally different place, ideally in a positive place. So the question by asking, what are you willing to try that is different? It is going to help them start taking some action, small actions right now that can help them lead to a bigger outcome down the line. And those small actions could be something like, you know what? I've never gone to a career fair, but I'm going to go to this career fair now. And let's say they go to that career fair, and let's just say they get a job offer. Maybe they didn't have any job offers. Maybe they were like, well, if I don't get a job by the end of college, I'll just go back to this bartending and serving job that I've got at my local restaurant. But now they go to that career fair. That career fair opens up a door. They end up getting a job at ABC company, and it opens up a world of what might be possible for them. But they would have never experienced it had they not gone to the career fair in the first place. So the little question of what are you willing to try that is different can have a major impact right now for where they will be in 10 years. Third question I like to ask is, who do you respect and how might he or she approach a situation you're facing? I like asking that question because it creates reasonability. It now shows that, okay, this isn't Superman or Superwoman who's doing these actions. These are people that I respect, that I know, and I can be like them too. The fourth question I like to ask is, what is your attitude about this situation? Is it helping you or hurting you? I like to ask this question because by having a clear understanding as to what their attitude is, like you don't want to go in as a mentor telling them what their attitude is. If you ask them what their attitude is, they will likely and hopefully have the self-awareness to recognize, you know what, maybe I don't have the best attitude about this situation. Maybe I should be more optimistic about career fairs. Maybe I should say, you know what, it's not schmoozing, it's networking, and you never know who you'll meet. And if you can help them identify where their attitude is not serving them and then adjust that attitude to a way that can serve them, you're much more likely to drive action and broaden their perspective. The fifth question I like to ask is, what is one of your greatest strengths? How can it serve you in this situation? I love to ask that question because what that question does is it allows for your mentee to acknowledge what they're good at. There was a study done, I forgot who did the study, but essentially the premise was this researcher brought the person that they were researching on into a coffee shop, and they staged like an actor who was like a homeless person outside the coffee shop with like a cup out for loose change or money or whatever. And they had 2 situations. One where the researcher said, oh my gosh, you're so generous, you're so philanthropic, you're willing to give your time for this research, you're like so giving as a person. And then other scenarios where they just didn't give any of these positive characteristics or strengths to the individual being researched. What they were researching was, what was the likelihood that that person gave money to the homeless person sitting outside of the coffee shop? And what they found was that when somebody was given this characteristic of being philanthropic, of giving, of charitable, of all the things that we associate with being a person who gives back, they were substantially more likely to donate and give money to the homeless person sitting outside of the coffee shop than somebody who did not get any of those priming characteristics. So the point is by asking the question, what is one of your greatest strengths and how can it serve you in this situation? By letting them say, this is my strength, this is my superpower, how can it serve you in this situation? It now almost breeds an environment where they're going to have to act because now they are presupposing this strength, this skill set on themselves. And if they say, I'm a person who does these things, well, then when an opportunity arises for them to do that thing, they're much more likely to follow through on it. The sixth question I like to ask is, what makes you curious about this issue? I love asking this, especially when it comes to broadening someone's perspective, because when you ask the question, what makes you curious about this issue? What it does is it gets your mentee to change the way that they think about their situation. And as opposed to it being, oh, because someone told me to, or my guidance counselor told me to, or my parents told me to, or my friends told me to, or I think I can make a lot of money, or whatever. Now you could tap into the curiosity of like, well, I find this to be a really interesting career path for me. And I think I could learn a lot in the space. And I think that the future of this industry is going to really open up, or whatever it may be. Um, by asking the question, what makes you curious about this issue, you are opening up their world to what could, you are giving them permission to open up their world to what could be possible for them and to tap into those things that they're genuinely excited about when it comes to their career path. So many people don't think about like what makes them curious when it comes to their career path. And when you ask that question as a mentor, that can really tap into the things that they like, or maybe the changes that they need to make because they weren't curious about it. They just were like, I heard this is a really stable industry and type of job and it makes a lot of money and whatever. But then they're like, I'm not curious about it at all. Well, then you're going to probably not like this job all that much. So, anyways, those are the six questions I like to ask a mentee when it comes to broadening their perspective. Do any of y'all have any questions? I know there's like this 30-second lag or delay between the actual video and the comment section. So I'll wait a couple more seconds. But anyways, if we have no questions, I would just love to say thank you for being a mentor this semester. Thank you for the work you're doing with your mentees. Thank you for being here. And I really appreciate you. We have one more workshop left over the semester. That workshop will be on April 23rd, the exact same time. So in 2 weeks from today, we will have our next mentor workshop, our final mentor workshop of the semester. So if you could start meeting with your mentee, are these questions and suggestions in the Ambition Emotion dashboard? They are not, David. Great question. No, they're just here right now. I can ask Jolene if she can email you all the questions. Yeah, I'll just ask Jolene to email the questions. But yeah, no, um, this is just for me to share with you all during this mentor workshop. So, by the way, what's great is that this is recorded. So if you want to rewatch this, you are more than welcome to. Um, how do you explain to your mentee that money and job satisfaction is different? That's a great question. Um, so, I mean, the way I look at it is up to a certain point. I think there's been a research done on this, but up to a certain point, money can bring, I think it's like up to around like 70K a year. I think there's like a research that was done like at $70,000 a year. That's like the threshold for when money, up to that point can give you the comforts of life that, essentially can drive a lot of, core necessities, clothing, food, shelter, all that sort of fun stuff. After that, enjoying your work is the most important part. I mean, that's what you're going to be spending the majority of your waking hours doing anyways. And so I guess maybe that's where all I'm going to say is where I'm going with this message is if you become really good at your job at a work that you really enjoy doing, the money will come. If you're pursuing a career because of the money, the enjoyment may never come. The money will still be there, but its impact on your life and your personal and your health on everything, uh, you know, can't necessarily be taken away. So it's one of those things where if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'll save up as much money as I can and I'll try to retire early or whatever. Um, I don't know. There's enough studies that show that when people are not when they retire and then just like drop and do nothing, their time to death is a lot sooner than people who have something that are keeping them engaged. And so I guess what I would say is if all we're doing is working this job that's paying us a bunch of money, that ultimately is to get to this point for a few years after we can be done working so then we can live the life we want to. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the juice is worth the squeeze. There's a lot of life that we can enjoy on the way there. And I figure I might as well spend my time enjoying the work that I'm doing. And sure, there are frustrating parts of every job, but that I like to think that working a job that you can be fulfilling can also pay you a salary that allows you to live the life you want to live. But anyways, I can see why that can be really confusing and something that I don't know, something that can be difficult because as a student and as a young professional, there aren't too many ways to differentiate between jobs. I mean, the main factor is salary. And so you look at that salary and you think to yourself, like, okay, well, this company pays me more in salary than this company, so therefore I'm going to take this job. It's really hard to determine culture because every organization is going to say they've got an amazing culture. But I really think that what's most critical is we determine what we're curious about, we determine what we like and what we dislike, and then we try to put ourselves in a position to do work that allows us to pique our curiosity and reinforce the things that we like and continue doing those things. So, anyways, that's my diatribe on job and money and how to determine it. But everybody's different. This is my own personal opinions on the subject. But great question. No, I appreciate that. Any other questions? Okay. Looks like we don't have any other questions. I'll have Jolene send out those suggested questions I gave during the workshop tonight. And anyways, I appreciate you all being here. Um, please be sure to get your mentee meetings in before the end of May. We'll have our next workshop in a couple of weeks. But anyways, thank you all for your time. I really appreciate you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. See you in a couple weeks.